Yeah. And what people don't actually know about, which is why I founded One River Capital, was the idea that I talk about passive income by investing in real estate, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that, Andy, that like the money is coming in, but it's not entirely passive, right? I still have to do a little bit of work. The nice thing
Sure.
about syndication and passive real estate investing, and when I talk to people, I'm like, hey, I'm actually quitting my W-2. I reached financial freedom, blah blah blah. A lot of people want that, but what often stop them are two things: the lack of time. I'm so busy. I have my family. I have this, so that I can't do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the lack of knowledge. There's a lot to learn in the whole real estate world. So this is when passive investing comes in, which is why when I founded One River Capital, because they can actually leverage that keyword, right? Leverage. And this time it's not just leverage your money, but they actually be able to leverage other people's experience, other people's
Mm-hmm.
time, and be able to actually invest in something entirely passively. No need to deal with tenants, toilet trash, no need to deal with the time, but still be able to actually own the asset, own something that, what you said, Andy, can actually create generational wealth, and then actually be able to leverage the group investing model in order to actually grow their wealth.
Hello, and welcome to the Generate Your Value podcast. I'm your co-host, Andy McDowell, founder and owner of Generate Your Value, providing self-leadership, leadership, and business coaching services for corporate executives and business owners.
And I'm Zach Levy, your other co-host. I run a nationwide financial service business with my wife, Megan.
Together, Zach and I have the intention to bring you tips, concepts, ideas, suggestions, stories, and analogies from A to Z, which will help you to grow your personal brand and leadership skills in such a way that joy, happiness, and success, as you define it for yourself, are achieved.
We hope to use our gifts, talents, and experiences in business and leadership to generate value in your life. And with that being said, let's move to our topic for today.
Hello, and welcome to the Generate Your Value podcast. My name is Andy McDowell, your host for today, the host with the most. Maybe, maybe not. Certainly time will tell after 45 minutes of this episode, where you can inform your own opinion about the quality of the host.
5-star out of 5.
Anyway, yeah, 5-star. Got a great show for you today with a guest who's got an awesome story. I can't wait for her to tell you her life story and where she's gone, how she's maximized the time. Right? We only have a certain amount of time on this planet I call Earth School, and it's all about going after the life that you want for yourself, creating the life you want for yourself. And I think after the episode, you'll be shaking your head going, yep, I get it. I get why Andy's here every single week talking about this stuff, because our guest today's really maximized the efforts for the time that she's been on planet Earth. So my guest today is Giang Nguyen. Comes to us from the great city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, home of the Eagles, Phillies, Flyers, and 76ers.
Wow.
It was had some storied life, if you will, on the sports scene. I lived outside Philly for a few years in my childhood in elementary school, and certainly was a Flyers and Phillies fan at that time. So I moved to northern New Jersey, and then I changed to the enemy.
Wow, what a story, Andy. How dare you?
Became a Giants fan, and all that stuff. But let me read Yang's bio, and then we'll bring her in formally and have a nice conversation about her life story and so forth. So Giang Nguyen is a seasoned multifamily real estate investor and syndicator specializing in value-add multifamily rentals. With over 10 years of experience as a scientist, Yang excels in analyzing complex data, employing financial models, and creative problem solving. She applies a data-driven approach to help her teams identify key markets, underwrite multifamily syndication opportunities, and create business plans that maximize property value. Yang achieved financial freedom through real estate investing at the age of 31, paving the way for her to pursue her passions. Driven by her desire to educate others and help them achieve financial freedom, Yang founded One River Capital, which we'll get into. Through the company, she provides people with real estate investment opportunities while also educating them on passive investment and investing. Being an immigrant herself, Yang understands the challenge of building wealth in a new country, and she's committed to supporting others in achieving their American dream through real estate investing and investment. So, Yang, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks
I
so
know
much,
that's not
Andy.
all of your life story. The biggest part that I think is missing is the beginning, right? And being a scientist.
Yeah.
So I always like to give our guests an opportunity at the very beginning to kind of fill in the holes, pick a point in your timeline that you want to start out, and give our listening audience an idea of your journey and experience so far through life.
Ooh, I love it. Thanks so much, Andy. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really
Yeah,
excited
absolutely.
to be here. And what Andy was saying about, you have limited time on this Earth School. So I'm really excited to share in this next 45 minutes about why I'm here, what I'm doing on this Earth School. So I grew up in Vietnam. I grew up there in Ho Chi Minh City. If you haven't been to Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City is hot, is crowded, is humid. But it's kind of like the New York version in the U.S. There's always things happening. Lots of things to do. So I grew up there.
Lots of honking cars.
Lots of honking. Motorbike actually is just
Motorbike.
packed. Yeah. So I grew up there, and then I came to the U.S. for college. So I moved from hot, humid Ho Chi Minh City to Maine. So that was my intro to the U.S. I went to a liberal arts college in Maine called Bates College, and I majored in biology. I wanted to become a vet, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so then I was majoring in biology, then I wanted to go to pre-med, and I want to do medical school. So then I actually start working, right after college, I start working as a scientist doing gene therapy for a blood disorder called hemophilia A. So I worked at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia for almost 10 years, actually, and just left that W2 August 2022. So I'm just in my first few years of full-time entrepreneurship. And I reached that financial freedom through real estate investing, specifically multifamily investing. What I do is I help other people invest passively in real estate. And I am also a competitive salsa dancer. So what you were talking about, Andy, maximize your time here on earth. This is more about work. This is about your passion, about what really fire you up every day when you wake up, right? So that's what I'm in pursuit of. Just really asking myself, what is it that I'm doing today? What really fire me up? What I'm here for?
Yeah, so there's so much to unpack there. Vietnam to Maine, what was that culture shock like?
It was quite a bit. So one part that I left out was I actually went to a boarding school as an exchange student in high school in New Jersey, actually. And that was actually my first cultural shock. I haven't seen snow.
Having grown up in New Jersey, I can understand that.
Yeah, I loved the boarding school so much. Everyone was so smart, so hardworking. And that was actually where I saw my first snow. One of my funnest experience was I was in my class, and my teacher knew that I haven't ever seen snow before. And so we had just the first snow of the season. And so she asked if people would like to switch so that I could sit on the other side of the room and be able to look out the window and see snow falling. And everyone's like, yeah, go ahead. I've seen snow all my life. And I'm just mesmerized by the snow.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, I think for the first few months, my roommate was saying that she could not understand what I was saying whatsoever. I was learning to completely learning everything in Vietnamese to now learning everything in English. But that year, I grew so much. And what I got to know about myself was that I loved learning. I just love this knowledge. I love just what's out there, what people have come up with. And so that actually fired me up to come back to the US for college and end up staying. So it's certainly a big cultural shock. And now, I couldn't imagine not taking that exchange year.
So where in New Jersey was the boarding school?
The school is called Petty School. It's in Hightstown, New Jersey. About, I would say, like
Hightstown.
40 minutes from the Six Flags in Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was further north. I was closer to Newark
Yeah.
than where you were. But I could appreciate the snow piece. So I was born in Florida.
Ah.
And my dad got promoted. We moved up to Southwest Connecticut. And then
Cool.
first time I saw snow was sitting at the kitchen table in the kitchen, and little snow flurries started coming down outside, and I looked outside and saw the snow flurries, and my mom was in the kitchen, and I said, "Mom, this guy's got dandruff."
That is so
Because I knew what
cute.
dandruff was,
Yeah.
but I didn't have a flippant clue as to what snow was. Nobody had ever really talked to me about it, so that was all brand new to me.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at the age of about 5 or 6 years old.
That's so cool. Yeah. And then I went to college in Maine, so then we had a lot of snow.
Oh yes.
We just had a lot of snow. But I went to a liberal arts school, so we kind of have, small campus. But every time it snowed, I was always amazed just how beautiful, quiet the campus gets. For a couple of days before things get, dirty, tramp over, and we experience the other side of snow. But yeah, I love that we have that first experience with snow when we're younger.
So, what happened in the desire to be a vet, but ended up being a medical researcher?
Yeah, great question.
What stopped the dream?
Great question. So I found out that I've always liked science. I like the knowledge. I like just how cool, to be honest, things are. Just so much knowledge, so much things that people have been able to research and found out about how the world functions. I always loved animals growing up, and so I was like, yeah, I want to become a vet. I actually wanted to become a wildlife vet. What stopped that dream was that I learned that there are only a limited amount of spots for wildlife vet in the U.S. Because at some point there's only so many zoos out there,
Right.
unless you want to travel outside the U.S. and become a wildlife vet that way. Otherwise, there's very limited amount of spot, and there's not a lot of turnover. So the job perspective was very hard to become a wildlife vet. And then I started. I knew I liked science. So after that, I just started doing research. I like finding things out, I like learning things. So research was like a perfect fit. And then I had an amazing working environment when I left college, and so I ended up staying there for almost 10 years. And because I was working in a hospital setting, I was working with a lot of doctors, and so that's how I got to know a bit more about what it's like to become a doctor, and I wanted to do that for a while. What stopped that, what got me to pivot, was quite interesting. I think sometimes when we grew up, right? I think a lot of people get asked, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to do when you grow up, right?
Yeah.
The question, though, that I feel like not a lot of people ask themselves is, what am I willing to give up in order to get there? So at that point, I loved the knowledge, but what I wasn't quite prepared for was like, okay, in order to become a doctor, that is about 10 years. 4 years of medical
Yep.
school, 3 years of residency, and maybe 3 years of fellowship. So that was about 10 years commitment. At that point, my parents actually was living back home, and I didn't want to really admit it, but they were getting older than what I really was prepared for. And then my dad got really sick. And that was one of those wake up call where I realized like, man, I'm going to be in this path of like 10 years of pursuing this. And what I'm really going to miss out on is all this time that I get to spend with my parents that I really won't be able to get back. Like, it's not one of those things that like my parents are going to be around and healthy forever. And, you know, I will always just do this maybe 20 years from now. So at that point, it was a wake up call of me choosing like, hey, what do I want to do more, right? Do I want to spend 10 years or do I want to be able to actually spend that next 10 years with my parents? And I chose the latter. So that was really one of the key reasons that really pushed me to grow in real estate. Because what I realized was I love my job and I had great job stability, but ultimately what it really came down to was one, I didn't quite have the flexibility. When my dad was sick, I couldn't really fly back home and be with my parents for like that weeks that I really wanted to be. So I knew that as long as my income depending on a job, I would not have that freedom and that flexibility that I think most of us crave for. So that really propelled me to grow my real estate portfolio. And that was how I was able to reach my financial independence through real estate investing and quit my W-2 about a year and a half ago. And this recording is timely because actually next week, Andy, I'm off for a month traveling with my parents. That has always been like that goal, that dreams that I'm getting there. And so actually next week I am flying out to travel with my parents. We haven't, in Vietnamese culture, Lunar New Year is huge for us to celebrate.
Yes.
And we haven't actually celebrated a New Year together back home since I was in 6th grade. Like all with me, my parents, and my sister. So this time we are getting that. My whole family, my parents, my sister, and I are going back home and celebrating Lunar New Year. So it's one of those. I'm really excited about the trip, and I would have not been able to really do this without having that passive income through real estate. I know there's probably a lot to unpack.
So I spent a lot of time in China. I haven't been to Vietnam, but I spent a lot of time in China in my Boeing days.
Oh, cool.
And I know come around the beginning of February, we could never get anything done with our clients because it's kind of like August is in Europe. Everybody disappears and goes home for the holidays, and the holiday lasts 3, 4, 5 weeks. It's not like the week between Christmas and New Year's kind of thing. It's a long time. So we always had to build that into our project plans, knowing basically the month of February, nothing's going to get done with the client. We could get stuff done that was in our control and keep the project moving, but in terms of interaction with the client, forget about it. Because everybody's gone.
Yeah, everybody's gone. That's the time that you spend with your family. That you, that's the true New Year's back home for us. Yeah.
So in your research days, it's not in your bio, but you actually achieved some things.
Yeah. So I worked for almost 10 years, and what I really loved about it was truly academic research. So we really got to ask the questions, not for the purpose of business per se, but for the true purpose of the pursuit of knowledge, where we get to really ask how things work, and then potentially how what we found out could potentially translate to a therapy. So it was really cool that I got to follow a project from when it was just an idea that I had that we could engineer a protein to actually be able to see this. We ask a question, we do a lot of research to really find out the answers, and then actually be able to have a patent on that engineering product. So that was definitely one of the highlight of my career. We were publishing papers on it. I get to present my research at different conferences. And like I said, I really love my work environment. I really love the people I work with, which was really helpful, why I stayed there for almost 10 years.
No, I can relate to that because I'm co-author on 2 patents back in my Boeing days, and
Yeah.
it's fun to do that research, find ideas that are
Yeah.
unique in nature, and um, an interesting thing is everybody knows and realizes from a patent perspective that um, I always say it's like the game of football. You have offense and defense, and a lot of times patents are used on the defense side, right? We have an idea, we're going to protect it because we want all the revenue based off the idea, as long as we have that patent protection. But in the case of the 2 patents I was involved in, we did it on the offense side because of what a competitor did.
Interesting.
Competitor took a similar idea. It was distinct enough that we could still get our patents, but they tried to lock the industry out of it, and it caused a lot of havoc in the industry, and we weren't able to participate in it. And so we took the slant of, yeah, we're going to patent it, but we're going to patent it and not go after any enforcement behind it, because we want to make sure everybody can participate in it.
That's a cool strategy.
We want to
I love that.
move the industry forward.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that nobody gets in the way of
Mm-hmm.
doing it like it happened before.
Mm-hmm.
So we went after the patent, but we had no intentions whatsoever to enforce it. We were actually trying to create a playing field where everybody could use it and make sure nobody tried to do it from a defense perspective like had been done before. So it's just a little idea out there for people that, patents can be used in both an offensive and defensive way. It just depends on what you're trying to achieve with the idea.
Yeah. That's really cool that
from
you
that
share that.
perspective.
Yeah.
Well, I got a lot of nasty grams from the patent first came out, because everybody thought that we as Boeing were going to go on the defensive side with it, and we're saying some nasty stuff about Boeing and myself and my colleague that co-authored it with me. We had to straighten some people out to say, we're not looking to enforce it. We're doing this to make sure that you can participate in it and not have somebody else go and lock you out of it and make you pay money for the use of it like was done over here. And then it was like, oh.
Intention is
never
what
got
matters, right?
never got any apologies out of it, but it is what it is. But I wanted people to understand, because I think that the magnitude of your story is from the standpoint of change of countries, going away from your family, change in cultures, change of dreams, and then a change to entrepreneurship, the realization about freedom. What you were really looking for was freedom for you to create the life that you want for yourself, as opposed to working in the corporate world. Is not a bad thing, but just like you said, you lose some freedom of time for the ability to have that stability or perceived stability in working for a corporation in exchange for that paycheck.
Yeah.
And there is some risk involved in it, but it could be profound to the freedoms that it brings. I understand that now, being an entrepreneur myself, as opposed to being 22 years in the corporate world.
Yeah, I fully agree, Andy. Like what you said about being in a corporate is not bad at all. I think a lot of people love their work and they love what they do, right? I think what we all just advocate for is not that everyone switch to entrepreneurship, because I'm not going to be here and say it's all rosy, right? We all have our challenges.
No, it's not rosy.
What I think we all advocate for is just the options, right? That freedom, what you said, just that choice that people get to make. If that is to stay in your corporate world, great. Like make that choice, and if that choice fire you up every day, do that. But ultimately, I think where we're really getting to is a lot of people who are in corporate world. Like in corporate world, we have this term called like a golden handcuff, where things are, there's always incentive, which is great, but it's kind of keep you at a job that may not really make you happy and will make you fire up every day. So I think what we all really here to share is just that people, have the choice of what it looks like. And it's a concept that I think maybe more so, I want to say popular now, so to speak, maybe just with different generation. Because let me tell you, when I left my W-2, one of the conversation I had was with my parents. They were both teachers. They taught all the way until their retirement. So the idea of me leaving a W-2 when I had such great stability, I love people I work with, the idea of me leaving that W-2 was insane for them.
I totally relate to that because I had the same issue with my family.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's just one of those things when people, exactly what you said, that perceived stability in a W-2 is what I think a lot of people stay. And I think it's right now what we all just advocate for is that people just need the freedom. In order to get that freedom, they do need some sort of second revenue or passive income or whatever that is, right? That is independent of their W-2. So that if one day they wake up and like, hey, I actually just want to switch to a part-time job, not quit entirely. I just want to quit a part-time job. They have some sort of other revenue or passive income or something else that can support them while they find out what it is that they want. So I think we're all here just supporting that choice that people get to make. Yeah.
But it's not only the paycheck; it's also the benefits.
The benefits, yeah. So
There's a number of people that paycheck. Yeah, I can take it or leave it, but having access to cheap health care and the benefit side is what keeps them in much more than the idea of a paycheck.
Yeah, I would say so. I struggled with that question for a while as well, right? I work at a hospital, amazing health insurance, we have retirement, all that jazz, right? And I would argue that the question of benefits ultimately come down to the question of finance. Because at some point, right, the point of benefit is that it helps offset some of these financial costs if and when you need to go to a hospital. So ultimately, it comes down to that. It comes down to the finance piece, where if you have the financial support, then you can technically just get your healthcare through the marketplace. It's going to be more expensive, but ultimately, I think it all just comes down to that financial piece of at what point the benefits really doesn't matter for you anymore.
So you're sitting in a hospital doing research in Philadelphia, and you decide with the events of your father's illness that you want to do something that's got you more freedom. So why real estate?
Yeah, great question. I went to liberal arts school, so I knew nothing about real estate. I was renting at a time, and becoming a real estate investor was not at all on my life bingo list, no matter how you were talking about it. So what happened was at that point, I was renting, and there was a foreclosure home that came up on the market just 4 blocks from when I was living at that time. And at that point, I didn't know anything about real estate. I didn't know mortgages exist because, again, I think this is the cultural difference, right? Back home, we don't really have mortgage. We don't really have, we don't have this financial support in order to purchase anything. So I didn't even know mortgage existed. But at that point, my sister was already a real estate agent. And so she said, like, hey, just buy this place. I'll help you with it. And so that place, there was a lot of sweat equity into actually rehabbing the place. The place we bought was vacant for over 20 years. We had no electricity, no water, no HVAC. There was actually a giant tree that was growing in the backyard that was growing into the foundation wall. Now, the cool thing was at that point, because I didn't know anything, I didn't know enough to be scared of anything. So I'm like, yeah, like this is just what people do it, right? Like, I didn't know it was possible to even buy a flip, like a nice place that you don't have to do anything. It's like, yeah, like this is just how things work. So I bought that place. Lots of Googling, lots of learning along the way. Lots of like physical sweat equity into turning this place around. And so through that, what I got to learn about myself is that I'm good at troubleshooting. I'm good at problem solving, and things just work out. So in a way, I feel like I didn't have any paralysis, like analysis paralysis, because there was nothing to analyze. I just go for it, right? Just take action. So then we got that place. That was a place that, we did a bird strategy, was just to buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and then repeat. So from that place, which was just a single family, after that place, I actually got to learn a bit more about real estate. And then I got to read Rich Dad Poor Dad, the Cash Flow Quadrants, a lot of these books that really help actually teach me this concept of financial freedom. As an immigrant, as someone who came over for college, that American dream has always been get a good college degree, get a good job, and life just seems to end after you get a good job. Like there was like
nice home, the white picket fence.
There was like no blueprint.
Family,
really
the
after
2
that.
dogs.
Yeah, it's like
the
check,
American
check, check.
dream, right?
And then so there was something I'm like, oh, I didn't know that the financial freedom was possible. I didn't know the passive income was possible. I didn't know anything besides trading my time for money. And so after that, I really learned that like, hey, the passive income is that key to really be able to get your time back, and what it looks like to really be able to get your time back. And so that set me on a path of building passive income so that it can help replace my active income. And yeah, that was one of those, take action first, ask question later, and just figure things out along the way, and things worked out. So yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about this notion of generational wealth, because I don't think it's well understood, or at least parts or pieces of it are not well understood. And this gets down to I did a podcast episode last season with a gentleman that was in about selling and buying businesses, right?
Oh, cool.
And I don't think there's a good understanding about the word asset. Right? That when it comes to generational wealth, the parts and pieces that bring you the most, what's the word I'm looking for, the most potential when it comes to generational wealth is assets, because they're tangible. There are some intangible ones that can help you, but for the most part, tangible. And that's why real estate is such a great mechanism for this. Is a way that, just as you have done, to create passive income. And by passive, we mean you're not having to sit there every single minute of the day working on the business. By nature, you spend some time, you set yourself up with assets or something that can make money while you are not even spending 1 second of your day on it.
Yep.
Just by the nature that it's there, you've created a business model that works. You're creating income even though you're not directly focused on it every single minute of the day, like you are when you, as you say, do a W-2, go work for a corporation. You're sitting at your desk.
Yep.
You are focused on your job. That change of time for money, right? So that's what we mean by a passive income. So assets are the best way to create generational wealth for yourself and do it in a passive income way. The other fear and I want to talk to you a little bit about that word fear in a minute, but the fear that people have is the word debt.
Mm.
People hear the word debt. Red flags go up, and I don't want to take on too much debt.
Mm.
Right? Because they're used to the mortgage payment, they're used to the car payment. And yes, the mortgage payment is buying into an asset, but it's the asset that you're living into. So it's not passive income.
That's correct.
It's just an expense
Yep.
that you're slowly building
Yep.
the equity to the home that you're living in.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really qualify for passive income.
Yeah, that's true.
Because the asset is not being used to make revenue or money.
Yeah.
So you can't use the
That's
word
correct.
income in that sentence, right?
Yep.
So not all debt is the same.
Yep. That's correct.
You can take debt, it appears to be debt, it's still debt on the books. But if you're using that asset as a mechanism now to bring in income, and that income is greater than what you have to pay out as a debt, then you're actually making money.
Yeah.
Which is going to help you to build the wealth
Yeah.
in your portfolio.
Yep. So one key things about financial literacy that I feel I was not taught in school is the concept of understanding what is an asset and what is a liability. And in that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad or Annual Cash Flow Quadrant, what they really trying to spend time on is helping people really understand what is an asset and what is a liability. So the concept, exactly what you say, Andy, the concept of asset is anything that actually put cash flow in your pocket.
Yep.
After all is spent, is put cash flow in your pocket. That is an asset. A liability is anything that actually take money out of your pocket. So a lot of people, like you said, think about buying a home, right? That's exactly what you said, that American dream of having a home. A home is actually a liability. Unless you are going to rent it out for Airbnb, unless you're going to do house hacking and rent, maybe buying a duplex and then renting one unit out and generate some income. Otherwise, a home is a liability. It is an expense. A car, a lot of people think about car as an asset. It is a liability. You're paying a car payment to use it. And a car actually is something that never going to go up in value. So
No, it only depreciates.
only depreciate, right? Unless you go into the whole new world of like buying really old car, and that's a whole new out investment, right? But overall, most consumer items are depreciating, right? So they are not asset, they are liability. So it's really important for you to take a look, for everyone to take a look at their whole financial situation. Are they spending money? Are they actively, intentionally spending money, putting money into things that are assets, that can help grow their net worth, that can help actually generate the cash flow for them, so that they could actually use that to now pay for the expense, right? One of the key concepts from the book is that what the wealthy does is they buy asset, use that cash flow to pay for their expense. And then at the point when the cash flow equal expense, they reach financial independence. When the cash flow exceed their expense, they reach financial freedom. So this is one of those concepts that's very easy to grasp, harder to execute, but very easy to grasp, right? And I
Right.
know what you just brought up is that what everyone is worried about debt, right? I don't want to be in debt. I don't want to be in debt. I think the key point is not thinking about debt. I want people to think about leverage. If you exchange the word debt with the word leverage, I think that's going to change your concept, right? And the important thing again is that is your debt being used to buy an asset that is giving you cash flow? So one, what is the debt being used for? And two, debt is actually what help a lot of people to leverage, which is why I love real estate, because that's not something you can do in stock, right? In stock, you have $100 to invest in stock, you get the power of $100. In real estate, you have $100, you can leverage that $100, borrow debt, and now you actually can amplify your power of $100 because of this power of leverage that we have in real estate or buying businesses, right? Those are all cash flowing, generating asset that is helpful to add into your asset column that help offset your liability.
Well, it's all about income flow. You as a company, small business, can go out and get a small business loan to help you pay for the first year or so, salaries for new people you want to bring into your business, with the hopes that those people and the work that they do is going to bring in more income for your business.
Yep.
That is going to pay for your payment on the loan and make some profit in the business that you wouldn't have if you hadn't leveraged that debt that you brought in.
Yeah. And what people don't actually know about, which is why I founded One River Capital, was the idea that I talk about passive income by investing in real estate, right? And you mentioned that, Andy, that like the money is coming in, but it's not entirely passive, right? I still have to do a little bit of work. The nice thing about syndication and passive real estate investing, and when I talk to people, I'm like, hey, I'm actually quitting my W-2, I reached financial freedom, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people want that, but what often stops them are two things. The lack of time. I'm so busy, I have my family, I have this, so that I can't do this, right? Or the lack of knowledge. There's a lot to learn in the whole real estate world. So this is when passive investing comes in, which is why when I founded One River Capital, because they can actually leverage that keyword, right? Leverage. And this time it's not just leverage your money, but they actually be able to leverage other people's experience, other people's time, and be able to actually invest in something entirely passively. No need to deal with tenants, toilet, trash, no need to deal with the time, but still be able to actually own the asset, own something that, what you said, Andy, can actually create generational wealth, and then actually be able to leverage the group investing model in order to actually grow their wealth. Which is why that's what I'm spending my time now. When I was starting investing as an immigrant, it felt like there's not a lot of people out there investing. A lot of people are working on W-2. And as an immigrant, as I share, a lot of the knowledge of investing, a lot of what is possible in the US are actually not quite well learned, well shared. And so people don't really know that this is possible. This is what a lot of wealthy people do. They invest in something like a multifamily, a large apartment building within a group, don't have to do anything, don't have to actually actively manage it, and they be able to generate the cash flow, the appreciation, the tax benefits without spending more time on it. So yeah, this is what I get to spend my day on, help educate investors, help really show them this is possible, and then a lot of problem solving when it comes to the real estate world. And then salsa dancing on the other side of things too.
Yeah, I kind of think of it as somewhat akin to like being a silent partner in the business, right? With a silent partner in the business, you're leveraging the expertise of your other partners in the business, and all you're bringing is some money to the table to be invested and used in an appropriate way in the business, and then you get a return out of the success of the business.
Yeah. Isn't that so cool?
And you're not really spending a lot of time with it.
No.
Maybe a partner meeting once a month or something of that nature, where you might have a little bit of say in how the business is running. But yeah, it's kind of somewhat akin to that. You don't have to spend a lot of time with it. If you can bring a little bit of cash up front to the beginning, you can start small and then grow it as your investments turn a return over. Without spending a lot of money in it. I don't know that people truly understand there's that opportunity out in the world, and don't get scared of this word called debt.
And that's the funny thing.
I like what you say. Use the word leverage. Use it as leverage and not debt.
Yeah, I think it's so cool that in this world, we get to leverage money, time, experience, and we get to do all of that and really leverage this group collective genius in order to execute something. And the funny thing is, people are already used to this in the stock world. If you invest in stock at all, that's essentially what you're doing. You're lending this company money. They then take it, run your business. And of course, the difference here, though, is that you don't actually own, right? You invest in Apple stock, you don't actually own Apple. You just own a paper
Right.
commodity. But you don't actually
Or
own
if
the
you-
company itself. But when you technically invest in apartment building or business, what like you would say, Andy, you actually become an owner. So it's very similar-ish model, except for the fact that you actually get to own.
A mutual
things.
fund. You're putting money into a mutual
Yeah.
fund. You're leveraging the expertise of the people that run the mutual fund
Yeah.
to take your money and invest it in a proper way that a return is going to happen over a period of time.
Yeah, that's exactly
It's
how
no
the model
different.
works. No difference.
You're leveraging the expertise of the fund manager or managers, depending on the size of the fund.
Yeah.
It's no different. You're just doing it with real estate as the asset
Yep.
as opposed to ownership in a company,
Yeah.
which is what a stock is.
Yeah. Yeah.
No different.
It's no different.
Just
yeah.
a different type of asset.
Yeah, just different type of asset. And I think what we're also what I always trying to educate people is diversification, right? This is why it's wonderful that in this age we get all access to a lot of these options around there, so that you can actually get to diversify your portfolio. You don't have to choose, I'm just gonna buy stock. You can choose to buy stock, invest in real estate passively, invest in a business passively, and actually diversify your portfolio to have cash flow, appreciation, tax benefit, and leverage the economy, this group collective genius. So yeah, I feel like we're in a great place that people actually get these options out there.
Yeah, I think your messaging is important for folks. So two questions left, and what time we have left. First one is about, and I mentioned it just a few minutes ago, the word fear. With your story coming to, as a young adult, to a new country, going to different schools, working through your dreams, working in a medical field, getting a patent, changing to an entrepreneur. How has, I don't know whether you want to call it the word or the idea or the emotion, fear played a role in your life? Has it been an evolution? Has it been, no, I've never felt fear at all my life and I'm a go charger? Or has it been, no,
That's
it's
fun.
been sitting there and I've had to deal with it?
Well, I love that
How
you.
is that word?
No, I love that you brought it up. So I don't think I've shared this too widely per se. My words for 2024 are actually fun and fearless. And I don't think you can have one really without the other. I think fears direct everyone's action on a daily basis, right? We have this
Yes.
two, stick or carrot, right? It's either you get reward or you get fear. So it's always this concept, this leverage and balance thing that we're trying to figure out, right? And I actually listened to something really interesting recently about fear, when there are two types of fears. And sometimes it's hard to distinguish which one is which. There are fears that keeping you alive, right? Don't
Yep.
cross the street when the car is towing you. There's fears that keeping you alive. And there are fears that are holding you back. And sometimes what's holding you back can feel like it's actually saving your life, because your body kind of get confused about what is what, right? So what I often do, and I have fears a lot, all the time, every day, actually this morning, every single time. So that's why I'm like, fearless is going to be my word. But what I do is I just try to kind of, I don't try to just ignore it and override it. I do try to pay attention to it. So let's say this morning when I wake up and I'm like, hey, these are all things that I'm like kind of anxious or like fearful about today. I kind of write it down. What it does is that it brings this fear from this just like blob of, I don't know what is happening, but there's just a feeling there. It helped this blob of unknown to become these bullet points on paper. So it doesn't feel like this giant, huge thing that I can never get over, but like one bullet point, 2 bullet point, 3 bullet points, right? So now I can really get to examine these bullet points. Okay, I worry that the interest rate is going to keep increasing. Now I get to examine that fact, right? That actually is not a fact. That is not true. So I get to examine, okay, if it is increasing, what is it that I can do? If it's not increasing, what is it that I can do? So actually I get to examine these form of unknown into really things that I can troubleshoot through, I can solve, I can put things in place to help it. So that's how I kind of go through the things. And sometimes what I also do a lot is I have community to help me. I have partners, I have mentors that really help me talk through things, right? These people are where I want to be. They can really tell me like, hey, if this happened, you can do this. If this happened, you can do that. Or you can tell me like, hey, you're just in analysis paralysis, and just go ahead, take action. So write things down.
Here's ways to minimize the risk.
Yeah, write things down.
You think the risk is yay big, and no, reality is it's only about this big.
Yeah. And so definitely write things down, talk to people. Things tend to be more manageable when you have conversations.
So Yang, I can't thank you enough for coming on, spending time with myself and our listening audience. On this podcast, we talk about golden nuggets, those things that people could take away from the conversation and integrate them into their life, into their business, into their leadership, whatever it may be, that gets them to a closer spot of what they call success in their own life. So I can't thank you enough for telling your life story and hopefully being an inspiration to some folks out there. So we have one last question. This is a question we ask every single guest.
Yeah.
Because we like to see where the thread is between all the answers.
Okay.
And the question is, what do the words generate your value mean to you?
What does the word generate your value mean to me? What comes up for me when I hear generate your values is that one, choice, right? You get the word generate, right? You really get to choose your own adventure, right? You get to choose what that looks like. So what comes up for me is that intention and that choice. And then value. I think that's we're all here for a purpose, right? We're all here for a reason. And I think what often fires us up, whether we realize or not, is actually how we are helping the world and helping others. So I think that's where the word value comes in. You get to choose how you show up in the world, and you get to choose how you contribute to the world. So that's what comes up for me when I hear that, and I love that. That's really how, that's really what fires us up every day, right? So I love that. Andy.
Yes, well, that's why I named my company after those words, and why I'm curious about what those words mean to everybody. So I ask that even of people that aren't guests on the podcast. What do those words mean to you?
Yeah,
because it's different for everybody. So if somebody wanted to reach out to you and learn more about your business or passive investing, or connect with you, because I used to work in the medical field in Philadelphia, or whatever it may be, what's the best way people could reach out to you?
Oh, awesome. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is called That Salsa Investor, salsa as the dance. So you can find me on Instagram. I'm pretty active on Instagram. And you can find out more about my company, One River Capital, at onerivercapital.com, spelled out O-N-E. Again, that is onerivercapital.com. And you can reach out to me at Yang at onerivercapital.com. And I'm always happy to share. Annie, you mentioned like an inspiration. I got here because other people really inspire me to see what's possible. So I'm always happy to chat and share just what's possible, what I'm doing, and always happy to connect. Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a great conversation. I just love getting to chat with other entrepreneurs and really share the journey and what we've been on.
No, that's why I spend the time, energy, and money to do this podcast. It's
so fun.
For people to be able to connect and understand and generate value in the world. So that being said, we're here every single week with an episode on the Generate Your Value podcast. Every week, be sure to go out there and subscribe so you don't miss an episode or another great guest like Yang is sharing their story and trying to make an impact and a ripple effect in the world, just like we all are. So with that being said, have a great day, have a great week. We'll see you next time on the Generate Your Value podcast. Take care. Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of the Generate Your Value podcast. If you find our conversations to be useful in your life, I invite you to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss an episode.
You can find me online at Instagram at _Zach.Levy, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
For information on my coaching services, visit my website at www.generateyourvalue.com. You can also find me and my company on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Instagram. Simply search for Generate Your Value on those platforms.
Once again, thanks for joining us for today's podcast, and we invite you to generate your value in this world.